Colombia hosts parliamentary elections this Sunday. Over 38 million citizens are called to vote in an election overshadowed by an increase in violence and voting irregularities. The Ukrainian army bombed a civil hospital in the self-proclaimed Popular Republic of Donetsk city of Volnovaja. The bombing killed at least 6 people. Iran's Revolutionary Guard claims responsibility for missile attack on Israeli targets on Iraqi soil. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from Telesur Studios in Havana, Cuba. We'll begin with the news. Stay with us. This Sunday, Colombians are casting their votes to renew the nation's legislative power, an election day overshadowed by an increase in violence and reports of electoral irregularities. To go deeper on the matter, let's talk about this situation in the day. This is the first election of 2022. This country will elect the new composition of the National Congress as well as the candidates for different political factions running to the first presidential round on May 29th. In view of this scenario, several sectors of civil society denounced the lack of security guarantees as well as an increase in persecution and violence against social leaders. Due to these acts of violence, 17 aspirants to occupy one of the seats representing the victims of the armed conflict, known as peace seats, resigned from their candidacy. There are reports of irregularities in different polling stations all over the nation. In Buenaventura, for example, hundreds of people cannot vote because authorities do not want to receive their votes at the voting table. In other polling stations, thousands are waiting to vote. Many will likely not be able to do so unless the polls remain open past the closing hour. The electoral register website presented problems during the day, hampering voting day, as people didn't know where to go to vote. More on Colombia's parliamentary elections in the following work.
The outcome of the vote will determine the new distribution of the 107 seats of senators and 172 seats of representatives from the different departments. So far into 2022, the moments up to these elections have been marked by the murders of social leaders and activists, a constant violation of the rights of indigenous communities and of the peace accord signed back in 2016, and the widespread violence in departments like Chocó, Cauca, and Valle del Cauca, with displacements and mass killings due to the organized armed groups in the regions. 38.8 million Colombians are set to vote on their lawmakers and also on 16 special seats in the legislative branch who represent the victims of the armed conflict. Women, Colombians of African and indigenous descent, and workers of many sectors as well as students will have a decisive role on the outcome given the high social discontent that's been reflected, for instance, in the massive social protests that shook the country in 2019 and most recently in early 2021 demanding social justice and a stop to the abuse of power of current President Iván Duque's administration.
Let's now take a look at the political landscape in these elections.
With polarization and discontent in the country ahead of the election of representatives to the Senate and the Chamber of Deputies, the main political forces in Colombia aspiring to win a majority vote in the Congress are divided into 3 coalitions. This would lay out the field for the upcoming presidential elections in May 29th. On the left side of the spectrum, the packed historical coalition proposes deep changes in healthcare and in the structure of the monetary system to fight against the impact of pandemics in trade and market flow, as well as to ease the challenges inflation poses, most of all for the low and middle class, who face the growing tide of inequality and lack of government support. Meanwhile, the coalition Centro Esperanza is being deemed as a central alignment, focusing more on issues like normalization of a basic rent fee and a reduction of corrupt practices. The right-wing coalition, known as Centro Democrático, with support from the military and public law enforcement bodies, is fixed at maintaining a continuity of the current government's plan of action, a firm follower of former President Álvaro Uribe's policy standards.
This Saturday, just a few hours prior to the legislative elections in Colombia, a new massacre was reported in the city of Santa Marta in the department of Magdalena. The Institute of Development and Peace Studies confirmed the report through its Twitter account. According to information provided by said institute, 3 men traveling in a car through Gaira city were murdered on Friday by hit men. a motorcycle. In the past confirmed the identity of the victims, Jainir Yacid Cano Gutierrez, Steven Jimenez Gutierrez, who were brothers, and Enedil Alfonso Lopez Mendoza, their stepfather. The triple murder occurred a few meters from the local police station in broad daylight. The authorities indicated this is the 22nd massacre this year. In the framework of parliamentary election in Colombia, the Minister of Defense, Dio Molano, announced that the democracy plan was deployed throughout the country to monitor the development of the voting.
Inform all Colombians that our country is prepared. The democracy plan has been deployed 100%. We have monitored start in detail in each of the regions of a country with reports from our division commanders, our military force, the same as the regional police. They all asserted that after starting the ballot, and so far there is no incident to report.
Minister Molano also highlighted the presence of security forces throughout the country, ready to deal with any public order disturbances or illegal activities during the 2022 elections.
Once again, we can see how all our forces are present in all the municipalities, watching over the more than 12,000 ballot stations installed, and also that despite the fact that there is nothing new, we have a capacity to react immediately to any action that may arise in terms of public order.
We move to other topics. Hundreds of demonstrators protested in the Guatemalan capital in rejection of a law passed by Congress that makes abortion punishable with harsher penalties, closes to the door on same-sex marriages, and limits the rights of the LGBTIQ community. The protest began in the south of the capital and reached the historic center. With dances, music, and multicolored flags, participants demanded Parliament to shelve the law for the protection of life and family, approved last Tuesday in the Central American nation. The law increases from 3 to 10 years the maximum prison sentence for a woman who causes her own abortion or consents to another person causing it. It also made clear that same-sex marriage is expressly prohibited and restricts schools from teaching about sexual diversity, among other limitations for the LGBTIQ population. In El Salvador, worshippers commemorated the 45th anniversary of the assassination of Blessed Rutilio Grande. A group of Salvadorian worshippers paid homage to Father Rutilio Grande, killed by the army during the civil war that took place between the year 1980 and 1992. On the 45th anniversary of this tragedy, residents of the municipality of El Painal gathered to pay tribute to the memory of the priest and his companions. In February 2021, Pope Francis recognized the martyrdom of Priest Grande by death squads, which is why he could be beatified.
This is the history of today. We are celebrating life, not death. We're celebrating the triumph of our martyrs. And this is what we have to celebrate every time, not just this date, every day. Let's live this legacy of theirs.
Let us take a short break now. Join us again after this. The Ukrainian army bombed Sunday a civil hospital in the self-proclaimed Popular Republic of Donetsk city of Volnovaja. The bombing killed at least 6 people. Eyewitnesses denounced that Ukrainian military used patients as human shields to shoot at Donetsk fighters. Most doctors, patients, and neighbors survived the bombing after hiding in the basement of the health institution. According to doctors, Ukrainian soldiers planted anti-personnel landmines to keep civilians from leaving the hospital. Moscow authorities have repeatedly denounced this type of actions by Ukrainian soldiers. 6 babies were reportedly born during the combat. The head of the Russian National Center for Defense Management, Colonel General Mikhail Mizhinstev, described as critical the humanitarian situation in several Ukrainian cities due to the action of nationalist groups that plant mines in populated neighborhoods and destroy facilities of essential public services.
As a result of these criminal and treacherous actions of the Ukrainian authorities, primarily in relation to their own people, the civilian population is forced to survive in inhuman conditions, without heat, electricity, water, food, and medicine.
In this sense, Mesintsev explained the war situations in the city of Mariupol, where Ukrainian nationalists are forcibly detaining thousands of people, including nearly 7,000 foreign residents from 16 different countries.
Humanitarian situation has developed in Mariupol. Hundreds of thousands of people, including foreigners, are forcibly held by nationalists who threaten in physical violence stop any attempts to leave the city.
Russia's Ministry of Emergency informed Sunday that it has delivered more than 330 tons of humanitarian aid to the people of Ukraine in the last 48 hours. The aid was sent to 5 Ukrainian regions, including Donbass, where the conflict situation is deemed to be the most difficult. The Ministry of Emergency stated that another 10,500 tons of humanitarian aid will be delivered in the next hours. The aid is one of the agreed decisions on the second and third rounds of talks between Russia and Ukraine, which also include the opening of humanitarian corridors for the safe exit of civilians and a ceasefire during the evacuations. Russia's Defense Ministry spokesman Igor Konashenkov said Sunday that Russian armed forces have disabled almost 3,700 military facilities in Ukraine since the beginning of the special operation in that country. The Russian Major General added that 99 planes, 128 drones, 1,194 tanks, and other armored combat vehicles, 125 multiple rocket launchers, 443 field artillery pieces and mortars, and 991 special military vehicles had been destroyed. The spokesperson for the Ministry of Defense also said that during the day the Russian Aerospace Forces Air Defense shot down one Mi-24 helicopter and 3 drones, and 79 Ukrainian military facilities had also been attacked.
Of Ukraine were disabled due to the special military operation. 99 aircraft, 128 unmanned aerial vehicles, 1,194 tanks and other armored combat vehicles, 128 multiple rocket launchers, 443 field artillery pieces and mortars, 991 units of special military vehicles have been destroyed.
And the West blocked some $300 billion of Russia's gold and foreign exchange reserves. According to Finance Minister Anton Silvanov, Western countries have blocked about half of Russia's gold, or some $300 billion from their reserves. The minister also stated that Russia, despite the freezing of its reserve, plans to honor its obligation and continue to pay its debts, but it will do so in ruble until the funds can be used again. Numerous Western countries began imposing sanctions against Russia after President Vladimir Putin recognized the Donetsk and Luhansk People's Republic as sovereign states on February 21st, and 3 days later launched a special military operation in Ukraine, claiming that both republics had requested assistance in the face of Kiev's aggression. Also Sunday, Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Cavusoglu said following a telephone conversation with his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov that sanctions against Russia will not solve the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. The minister also said that he had asked his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov for support in evacuating Turkish citizens from the city of Mariupol. The Turkish Foreign Minister also said that the Russian president is not reluctant to meet with Ukrainian President Zelensky on February 24th. The Russian president launched a special military operation not aimed against Ukrainian cities nor seeking to endanger the civilian population, but rather to disable Ukraine's war infrastructure. We have more news coming up after a financial break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. The government of Iran claimed responsibility for the ballistic missile attack against Israeli facilities located in the city of Erbil, capital of the Kurdish Autonomous Region. The precision strike of 10 ballistic missiles hit 2 advanced training centers run by the Israeli intelligence agency Mossad. The attacks did not affect the U.S. consulate or the Harry U.S. military base close to the points of impact. Kurdish authorities confirmed that there were no casualties or injuries from the attack. For its part, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard of Iran issued a communique in which it claimed responsibility for the operation and confirmed that it was a precision attack against intelligence facilities of the Israeli regime in response to previous aggressions. The attack near the Iraqi city of Erbil would have caused damage to the facility for Kurdistan 24 television channel. Through social media, the TV channel distributed images of the damages to their building, but they say no one was injured. Through a communique, the management of Kurdistan 24 said that the attack interrupted their broadcast for a few minutes. And Greece's Prime Minister met with Turkey's President over lunch in Istanbul on Sunday, in a rare meeting between the neighbors who have been at odds over maritime and energy issues, the status of Asian islands, and migration. Prime Minister Mitsotakis and Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan were expected to discuss bilateral and international relations, as well as the effects of the Russia-Ukraine war. Tensions flared in the summer of 2020 over exploratory drilling rights in areas in the Mediterranean where Greece and Cyprus claimed their own exclusive economic zone, leading to a naval standoff. Turkey also claimed Greece is violating international agreements by militarizing Aegean islands. Officials from both countries resumed exploratory talks in 2021 after a 5-year pause to lay the groundwork for normal negotiations to begin, but have not made much progress. The United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees stated that Afghanistan was facing a converge of crisis even before the Taliban took power in August 2021. A severe drought was withering crops, the socio-economic impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic had increased poverty, and the country's long-running conflict had left over 6 million Afghans internally displaced. Now the Middle East nation is on the brink of a humanitarian catastrophe. A combination of international sanctions, the freezing of the government assets, and the suspension of foreign aid has plunged Afghanistan into an economic crisis. Some 80% of nearly 250,000 Afghans forced to flee are women and children. The drought and resulting poor harvests have worsened the situation, with food stocks predicted to run out by mid-winter. Soaring unemployment and food costs have pushed nearly 23 million people into hunger. A high-level Malian delegation with Mauritanian officials in Nouakchott on Saturday amid tensions over the disappearance of Mauritanian civilians in a border area. The envoys are led by Mali's Foreign Minister Abdoulaye Diop and include government spokesman Colonel Abdoulaye Maiga, Armed Forces Chief Oumar Diarra, and Colonel Modibo Kone, head of Mali's intelligence. The official visit comes after Mauritania on Tuesday accused the Malian army of recurring criminal acts after several of its citizens disappeared near the border. After the meeting, the two delegations agreed to set up a joint commission of inquiry with the aim of clarifying the facts.
At the end of the debates and discussions, the two parties agreed on the following: to set up a joint ad hoc fact-finding mission to shed light on the latest events in El Lataye and to punish the perpetrators of these heinous crimes as severely as Malian law allows.
Millions of people across China endured lockdowns on Sunday as virus cases doubled to nearly 4,000 and anxiety mounted of the resilience of the country's zero-COVID approach in the face of the worst outbreak in 2 years. A nationwide surge in cases has seen authorities close schools in Shanghai, lock down central neighborhoods in Shenzhen, as well as whole northeastern cities, as almost 18 provinces battle infections of the Omicron and Delta variants. China, where the virus was first detected in late 2019, has maintained a strict zero-COVID policy enforced by swift lockdowns, travel restrictions, and mass testing when clusters have emerged. But the latest outbreak, driven by the highly transmissible Omicron variant and a spike in asymptomatic cases, is testing the efficacy of that approach.
Medium-risk areas continue to be restricted from entering Beijing, and thorough investigations are conducted to identify people in Beijing who have been to those areas. Remote screening will be strengthened for those coming from other areas across the country. who can only enter the capital with a negative result of COVID tests taken within 48 hours before arrival and a green health code. They must get another COVID-19 test within 72 hours after their arrival. Trump.
And we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Remember, you can join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For Telesur English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.